So 8 years ago we decided to come to Portugal. We didn't have a lot of money, we didn't have a lot of practical skills. We were drawn to create something for other people. We found some land. Basically it was, it was this. Okay, it looked like this. It was basically a bunch of buildings that had no roofs, and some had no walls. But we looked at this and we knew that this was the place, because the impulse said this is it. And we're like, oh, it's bigger than what we expected. But we said, nope, this is it. We're like, really? And we're like, yes, okay, so we have to do this. So we didn't have the practical skills. We had no idea how to renovate buildings. We had no real gardening experience. Pete was a gardener once in London years and years ago, and I basically didn't even know what dirt was. So we didn't have a lot of experience. But we started to create. And the people that we needed showed up. The money that we needed showed up. We came here with almost nothing. And fast forward 8 years later, we have this. And more importantly, what we have is we have a network of evolutionaries. We have a network of people who are committed and giving their lives to living this utopian impulse, not on their own, but together. We have projects that are based on the same values that we have in following this utopian impulse. They have to follow their own passion. So there's projects creating that are separate. We're at Quinta de Miserella. At Quinta de Miserella, we're the spiritual hub of the Awaken Life project. But we have another project that's separate from us, where the people in that project are interested in health. So their focus is on that. Another project that basically is about family and education, their focus is on that. Another project that is stemmed from us, that is about reforestation. So everyone gets to follow their own passion, but we come together in the one value of actually manifesting this utopian impulse. Here and now together. So I think I'm probably running out of time.
Yeah.
So that was the short version.
Thank you, that was really, really inspiring. And when you talk about the utopian impulse, you know, and I mean, it's always good, I think, also to see how much it's alive in us, because you know that the biological level, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the impulse to procreate. You know, sometimes it's so much active in us that we want, you know, beyond us, beyond our own will. You know, there is a need to procreate in women, or when we want suddenly, you know, to follow our creative impulse, you know, to immerse something new in art, in whatever area. And that's something sometimes we can, you know, even forget to have lunch or to eat in order to go through that creation. And it seems that at the spiritual level, this impulse is about evolution of consciousness. I want to become more conscious. I want to, as you say, I want to bring more care, more love, more consciousness, more perspective, more possibilities in a new world, a new culture, to following that impulse. So it seems it's very impersonal, because you say it was common to every human being, coming from the source of Utopia itself, and it seems it's very alive in all of us. But my question is, as you said very rightly, it seems that there's also a part of us, we call it ego, that is resisting to that. So there is a kind of division in ourselves, or the double motivation, I would say, having two different directions. One is the motivation and the goal of the ego. One should maybe just to stay by himself, herself, and you know, divided from the rest of it. And what's happening in Africa, what's happening, you know, I don't have a connection with the suffering which is happening there. And this utopian, you know, impulse to become more aware and to create a world of better harmony and unity. So how is it possible to go from one to the other? You said it's about suffering, you said it's about transcendence also. Is meditation the solution? Or what is your proposal?
Can we both do this? And you go first.
Okay. So I'll give you mine. Well, first of all, I think it's very important, as Cynthia said, and I think if we're all willing to just be very real, we can all recognize that we have an ego. that what we're calling ego is part of our human nature. And I don't think, actually, at least in my experience, transcendence is enough. Maybe in some very rare cases, people take that journey back to the source through meditation or through spontaneous awakening. And maybe as a result, in a very rare case, their entire relationship to the human experience is transformed. And their ego basically is no longer in the driver's seat of the human vehicle. But that's definitely the exception, and that is not usually the case. So, one of the things I've given my life to at the project, and is a foundation of that project, is meditation. Is a practice that grounds ourselves in that already free dimension, where we recognise that who we really are is not the passing content of consciousness, but that which perceives and transcends and includes all content. So that's absolutely primary and fundamental. But at the same time, in the practical reality of living a human life, and especially in our relationships, as we all know, that's really not enough. We actually have to be willing to inquire and explore and find out for ourselves what motivations, what patterns, what habits we have are basically coming from what we call the ego, which means a movement of self-contraction in the human organism. Or are those impulses, those movements, those preferences coming from a deeper place that have to do with, as I was saying, our unique dream as an awakening soul, and our passion to become a more fully human being. So, in our experience, it's really a movement of both letting go and meditation, and giving ourselves to that depth consistently with deep commitment. But it's also a movement of ongoing inquiry and willingness to confront and face into the very real challenges that arise in human life. But the most important thing in terms of that is a deep understanding, as Cynthia said, that it's all part of the process. So often the way that ego is related to in spiritual paths is it's something that's basically in the way and it needs to be got rid of. And then we'll be a beautifully enlightened human being. But actually, the ego is not in the way, it is the way. It is the way. It's actually engaging with all of those structures and movements that keep us limited, that keep us separate, that keep us bound, facing into them and endeavouring to transcend them, that we actually truly change. That's the only way we truly transform as a walking, talking human being. I believe that still today there's far too much emphasis on this transcendent ascent in spirituality. And what the soul of the earth is screaming for, and I believe God is screaming for, if he could come here and scream, is, hey, wake up everybody, it's not about transcendence, it's about discovering that you are me, that we are God, but from there, that's a launch pad, that's not an end point, that's a launch pad to get involved here, to get engaged here and live a truly awakened human life. As one of my great spiritual heroes, Sri Aurobindo, said, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from the Aurobidians, he said, we human beings, as we experience ourselves to be at this time, are a transitional species. We are a transitional species. So just to open up to that possibility, it's like, whoa, wow, we're not finished yet. What comes next? Aren't you all interested in that?
He loves to talk. I always have to say, I want to talk too. I just want to say something about this movement of ego that Eric was talking about, because it is something that we want to transcend, and what Pete was saying is it does help us to evolve. So when we, as human beings, we come together and we talk about this impersonal movement of ego in ourselves, usually we're we personalize this movement, and usually we're ashamed of the movement of ego. So we're ashamed of being competitive, we're ashamed of our narcissistic thoughts, we're ashamed of a lot of our human experience. But when you come together with other individuals and you start looking at the one movement of ego, and you realize that it's not your personal problem, it's your personal responsibility not to manifest it, but it's not your personal problem. Something starts to happen within the individuals. And there's a level of ease of being that comes into the room. There's more trust, there's more transparency. So you can be talking about very deep structures of competition or anger or whatever it happens to be in an evolutionary context. You can speak about that with other people. And you can even talk about pride. We had a women's group last weekend where we were talking about pride and competition between women and a deep mistrust between women. So very real and raw subjects. And it was very real, raw, and implicating. And sometimes pride did come into the room, but we didn't divide. But at the end of the day, even talking about those kind of subjects, what we end up with is a higher level of consciousness. We ended up with a higher level of integration. We ended up with more love, more care, more respect. So ego can also be a driver to take the human being to more care, more love, more respect, to something higher when we're able to come together and speak about the impersonal movement and not just sit alone by ourselves and think we have a special problem that we have to get over.
Thank you. Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you all.